Well, hello everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Life After the Big Audition. I'm in my car right now. I wanted to do this video. I wanted to pick up from where I left off. This channel is based on my talents and my potential for my talents. And to work hard and get more than 4 seconds for my talent than I did last season. So this is the whole purpose of this channel. And it's also this channel is recorded out of Martins Ferry, Ohio. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to pick off from where I left off on this. I just wanted to I just wanted to say to everybody, this is welcome to Disco Bob Entertainment, and we're gonna pick off from where I left off on episode 1, part 2. This is part 2 of Life After the Big Audition. So basically, what I'm gonna be talking about is, I was gonna talk about where I was. What I did after I graduated high school. That's where I left off from when I was going to talk about when I graduated high school. After I graduated high school in 1990 from Martins Ferry High School, I wanted to be a custodian at the school, so I didn't go to college. I never went to college. We never really had the money and that, and I mean, I had the grades, but I didn't have no desire to really go to college. No really desire. So, what I did was, I wanted to get on the sub list as a custodian, a sub-custodian, because I worked in the schools as a helper, and I always wanted to do it because of the benefits, and there's a lot of benefits, a lot of good things with it that comes with that, and hospitalization, dental, and all that. So I put a letter in, and I got hired. They called me in August of 1990, which was 3 months after I graduated high school. So they called me and they said, do you want to be on the sub list? And I said, sure, I'll be on the sub list. And that's what they asked me. And I said, yeah, I'll be on the sub list, no problem. So I got on, and I got called at a few places, off and on for like 3 years. Well, 2.5 years, almost 3 years. I was 19 years old as a substitute custodian. So I worked at the McClure Hotel in Wheeling, West Virginia, and I was in laundry. It was a work program. I was in laundry, and I was in all that stuff. Maintenance. I did a little bit of everything. Worked 4 hours, and then they needed somebody in the kitchen or laundry or somewhere, that's where I worked. But it was a working training program, so I told them I wanted to be on the sub list because it's good money working for the school, and then you got all your benefits. It was better money than I would working at the hotel. So, funny thing is, the weird thing was, when I got hired, as a substitute, and like I said, and I worked, like I said, 2.5 years, and then, right when, it was in December of 1990, to be exact. It was December of 1990, they called me and wanted me to be a sub at Hilltop Elementary. So there was a lady out there that was a custodian, an older lady. So they called me out there, and I worked out there. I worked out there for a little bit, and they ended up worked off and on. I worked on Fridays out there because she was sick, and she was going to the doctors and stuff like that, and she was sick. So she had some health issues. So I ended up working off and on, and then I ended up working like, they asked me if I could work a couple weeks, and I said, sure. So I worked a couple weeks. Worked there. I was off and on at different schools, but I worked there for a couple of weeks, and then they called me like in January, and they said, well, in January they said, can you work the rest of the school year, which was from January all the way till, June. I said, man, yes, I would. I mean, that was exciting, but I didn't have benefits at the time. But that was exciting. I got, full time as a, substitute custodian. That's a lot of time, And she wasn't doing too good, she had cancer. But she had to go through chemo and all that, and she took a lot of time off, so I subbed, and, I worked out there, and the people, I just got along real good with the teachers and the kids, and it was nice. It was awesome, so I left there. When I left home, I felt like I was excited, man. Here I am, 19 years old, and I got keys to a school, and I'm responsible, and it's really cool when you're when you're 19 years old, you're just a kid, and stuff. But I worked out there all that time till summertime, and it really it wasn't that long after that. She had cancer, and she ended up passing away. It was hard. I didn't know her real well, but it was tough, and they had to find somebody permanently, and then like a couple school years later or so, a school year later, I worked at Steeple Valley School, which they called me at 9:30 in the morning. It was 2 weeks before school started, and you're talking August of 1992. He called me and said, principal called me. I just lived down the road from the school, and it was Marks Ferry Junior High, to be exact. It used to be Steeple Valley Elementary. He called me and he said, Bob, he says, can you come up at 9:30? It was like 8 o'clock in the morning. Can you come up at 9:30? I said, sure, yeah. And I couldn't think for the life of me why he wanted me up there at 9:30 in the morning, because usually when you sub for somebody, and it was summertime too, and that's what I couldn't understand. So he called me, and I come up, and he told me what happened. It was very tragic. One of the custodians that worked there, and he was probably 62, 63 years old. He had an aneurysm. He was coming home from a girlfriend's house, had an aneurysm. It burst, in his head, and he died before he hit the pole. He died behind the wheel. And it was early in the morning. He was coming home from a girlfriend's house early in the morning. That was tragic. I didn't know him real well, but it was still terrible. I felt bad for everybody around, and it was a hard moment. So we had to go to his son's to get the keys, and it was rough. It was rough. Felt bad for the guy. Never got a chance to even retire, and lost his wife prior to that and stuff, and like a year before that and stuff, lost his wife, and that was rough. What I did was, I went, and this was like 92, this is like September of 92, and I'm working everywhere, I'm like August and in September, and had to get the place ready before school started. It was 2 weeks before, so that's what I did, and I was all over the place, bumping all over the place, and, here and there, and there and there, and everything, and, I didn't know what I was going to do, so that's what I did. I subbed, and I went everywhere, kind of discouraged, I didn't ever think I was going to get hired full time and stuff like that, and I finally, let's see, it was November, it was October, I think it was, of 92, October of 92 is when I got, I come into work. I worked at my old high school on the third floor as a substitute custodian, because they bounced me around everywhere, because when you have a union job, a lot of people in a union can bid on those jobs, and then they get them, and then the person, whatever's left over, nobody wants, the substitute gets. So that's usually how that works. So what I did was I did that, and substituted, and got up there, and the assistant principal come to me, and he says, Bob, come in an hour late or an hour early, so we can try to set up a we're gonna have your interview. Oh man, was I excited. Interview for the job. I was so excited about that, getting an interview for the job. That was so cool. That was pretty awesome to do that. And I was excited. I thought, this is my chance and my opportunity. Chance and opportunity of a lifetime to get this. So what I finally did was went to the interview, had the principal, the assistant principal, the superintendent and assistant superintendent was at the table, and they asked me all these questions and stuff, and it was good. It was great. And then it was like in October. Well, I think it was like in October. And then 2 weeks later, it was like right before Thanksgiving break, November of 1992. They called me. One of the custodians. He was our union president and district-wide custodian. He come up and he says, Bob, he says, I got good news for you. But he worked over the administration building. He says, I think they're gonna hire you full time. And I was like, oh man, that's freaking exciting, I was so excited. I was like, oh man, And they ended up taking me, like bouncing me around a little bit. And then once the board meeting came, it was December 15th of 1992. They had the board meeting, and then the superintendent come over after the board meeting. I worked 2 to 10 at the time at the other school. Administration building was right across the street. He come over and he says, Bob, congratulations, welcome aboard, you're hired. And this was 92, December 15th, 1992. So I was all excited. I'm a young guy, I'm in my 20s, and I'm 22 years old. Got on a sub list at 19, and then 22 years old, I got hired. 3 years out of high school. It was exciting. Gonna get good benefits, life insurance, everything. Dental, health, everything. It was exciting. So I worked at different schools, and it was exciting. It was an exciting time for me, getting hired and stuff, and here I am, 27 years later. It'll be 27 years in December. Here I am. I'm still there. I'm almost about the top dog, right now. As far as seniority wise, almost. But yeah, that was a good time for me. I was very happy when that happened. And because that meant benefits and everything. For me, that meant a lot, and I never learned to drive yet. I didn't have my license. I was 22 years old, didn't have my license yet, but I was almost 22. I was 21. I was 21 years old in December 15th, 1992. When I got hired, I was 21, and then I didn't turn 22 until January of 93. So that was a good moment. So my stepdad took me every day to go driving, because we couldn't afford insurance. I couldn't afford car insurance. So when I got a full-time job, he went out and took me out for driving practice and everything. And I got my license, got my car, bought a car, and $1,600 car, and took money out of the bank and bought it, 85 Tercel. Got that car, and I drove, passed my license, and got to drive. It was so cool. Practice every day for a month. My stepdad took me out, and But I was 21 years old when I first got my 22 when I got my license. 22 years old. So what I did was I drove everywhere. First thing I did, I drove to the mall. The mall was like probably, I would say 7-8 miles from the house, 10 miles from the house. So I drove to the mall. Didn't have to depend on anybody to drive me. So that's when I started driving to different skating rinks. Instead of going to my hometown rink, I went to different skating rinks. So the other skating rink I couldn't get to was the one in St. Clairsville, which was right up the road, right, like not far from where I live at. So St. Clairsville, the Valley Skate Center they called it, and I skated there all the time. That was like probably 12, 13 miles past my house. So I would get out there, and that's where I got the name Disco Bob, from that skating rink. And that was like 1993, 94. So I come into during the disco block. And I get in there, and they would say, the one, the only, he would come in, and he loved WWE wrestling. He was a DJ, and he was a teacher, Lou Campanese. And he loved working as a DJ, and he was fun. And I would go there, and as soon as I get done work on a Friday night, I'd go there, or Saturday night, and it would be always, I get there all the time while there was a disco block. And he'd play a disco block just for fun. And then he'd add a song every so often. And then when he added a song, he added like different songs to it. So like he'd add like something like Casey and the Sunshine Band, and then something disco. And then he'd keep adding disco here and there. So once he started adding disco, and I would always come around that time when he did that. It was ironically. So he started calling me Disco Bob. And that's how the name Disco Bob came to life. He started calling me that, and it stuck. And I really didn't like that, but I started, it was fun. It was fun. We'd call the people up, and we'd come in. He'd say, he'd say, here he is. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Disco Bob. So, and I still use it in my videos today. So it was cool. Now you're talking 1994, something like that, 95, 93, somewhere around there. So that's when I started driving. I started going to these rinks. So, okay, this is it for this. This is it. Stay tuned for part 3 of Life After the Big Audition. And when I get all this, all my life told, I'll pick up, and then I'll do things of my regular life. What I'm doing today, after I get through all this other, through my history, and stuff like that, and my life and stuff. So, hey, thanks everybody for watching Life After the Big Audition. I appreciate everybody. So, I'm going to be making another upload pretty soon. So, stay tuned for that one. So, for Disco Bob Entertainment, thanks for watching. And thanks for watching this episode of part 2 of Life After the Big Audition. So everybody have a good one. So long.